The Great Schism of 1054, also known as the East-West Schism, marks the official separation of the Western Church, based in Rome, from the Eastern Church of Constantinople. While it is generally declared that the division of the churches came in 1054, many historians actually believe that there was not one specific event of the schism, but many that eventually added up to a breaking point. Conflict within the churches of Christianity can be seen as far back as the 2nd century even. The events of the Quarto-Deciman controversy can be regarded as potentially the start of what would become the Great Schism, when the Bishop of Rome attempted to excommunicate a group of churches throughout Asia Minor in 190. And I am happy to say that this video is sponsored by the Great Courses Plus. As a history geek, I seek to know more about history every day, and regardless of your passions, I think we should make learning our primary goal in life. The Great Courses Plus is a subscription on-demand video learning service with top-notch lectures and courses from top professors from great universities and other experts. Through your subscription, you get access to a huge library of over 11,000 video lectures about anything that interests you. Science, math, history, literature, or even how to cook, play chess, or become a better photographer. One of my favorite lectures is about the decisive battles of world history. A different event could have greatly influenced our lives today. The Great Courses Plus is giving our viewers a great offer of a free trial. You can support this channel and also learn new things by clicking on my link in the description and subscribing to the Great Courses Plus. Pope Victor I, hoping to settle the debate between whether Pascha or Easter should be celebrated on the 14th of Nisan or on the following Sunday, tried to do so by overextending his papal authority to excommunicate the Quarto-Decimans, which were those Christians who refused to observe the Lord's Supper on a Sunday. While most agreed with the celebrating of Pascha on Sunday, many bishops strongly reprimanded the Pope for his actions and were in complete disapproval of his effort to claim supremacy over all Christianity. The Quarto-Decimans utterly ignored their excommunication. But when the First Council of Nicaea rolled around in 325, every Christian church became required to celebrate Easter on the same day, a Sunday. Another topic covered at this council was the Nicaea Creed, which is a statement of faith used by a variety of Christian denominations today. Because the Western Church felt the need to change the creed and add the Filioque clause. Without bothering to consult the Eastern Church leaders, the West tweaked the words of the Nicene Creed, which was an important part of divine liturgy, and still is. The original version included a portion saying, "I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father, who with the Father and the Son is adored and glorified, who has spoken through the prophets." The Church in Rome, however, decided to add the phrase, "and the Son," after "who proceeds from the Father." To the East, not only was this done without their approval, but it was complete heresy. Both today's Catholics and Orthodox Christians agree with this statement. But the addition of "and the Son" to the Nicene Creed seems to utterly contradict this shared belief. The issue appears to be theological, but could potentially be more of a translation problem. The East, who use Greek translations, had every right to see the West's change as heresy, because in Greek it would be. The English translation saying "who proceeds from the Father" compares to the original Greek version, and essentially refers to the one true source of the Holy Spirit, and can really only be interpreted along the lines of saying "originates from." The Latin translation used by the West, however, uses the wording "qui a patre procedit." This is where the discord seems to stem from. The East sensibly was infuriated by the addition of the Filioque, because to imply that both the Father and Son were the source of the Holy Spirit was grossly irresponsible and incorrect. But due to the translation differences and apparent disconnect of understanding between the East and West at the time that the Nicene Creed was changed, many from the Western Catholic side aimed to settle this argument with the explanation that Using the intention of the Latin translation, the West only meant to add on to the statement by clarifying that the Holy Spirit can only exist alongside the Father and Son, not that both are the creator or source of the Holy Spirit, which would indicate that the Spirit is of lesser status than the Father and Son. Still, even though the addition of the filioque could arguably be valid in terms of its meaning, there was another reason that the East was wildly disapproving. To grasp why, you first have to understand the chain of events that occurred during the creation of the Nicene Creed. The first event of extreme relevance is the Council of Nicaea, of course. This was the council in 325, at which the original Nicene Creed was written, with both the East and West in attendance, although no mention of the Holy Spirit's procession was made. Next in 381 was the Council of Constantinople, including only the East. At the Council of Constantinople, the Eastern Church made some adjustments to the original Nicene Creed, and that is technically where they added the portion of the Creed which addresses the procession of the Holy Spirit. The Creed remained known as the Nicene Creed, in reference to the original, but it is important to note that it is actually not the original contents of the Creed that is used today, and that was changed in Latin translation. That fact becomes immensely applicable at the East-West Council of Ephesus in 431, where Canon VII was established to say, "The Holy Council decrees that no one should be permitted to offer a different creed of faith, or in any case, to write or compose another than the one defined by the Holy Fathers who convened in the city of Nicaea," which in itself may not seem completely damning for the West, until you add the fact that the council president Saint Cyril of Alexandria also declared, "We prohibit any change whatsoever in the creed of faith drawn up by the Holy Nicene Fathers. We do not allow ourselves or anyone else to change or omit one word or syllable in that creed." Nevertheless, while Saint Cyril's statement complicates matters, there remains one obscurity given the fact that the original creed was changed at the Council of Constantinople. This begs the question of whether the East had already violated the new canon, or did they intend to reference the Constantinople update of the creed as the creed of faith drawn up by the Holy Nicene Fathers? The answer to that could be what makes or breaks the West's validity in their own adjustments of the creed. But either way, this discord remained a building tension. In addition to the unresolved issue, the East and West also could not seem to find middle ground on two other matters: the use of unleavened bread for the sacrament of communion, or whether clerics should remain celibate or not. On the subject of the bread dispute, the Western Church believed that unleavened bread should be used because of the fact that it is historically more likely that Jesus would have used unleavened bread at the Last Supper. On the point of celibacy, the West was determined to maintain that all priests and bishops must be celibate and unwed, while the East accepts married men to be ordained as priests, though they cannot remarry if their wife dies, and only bishops are required to stay celibate. Despite the lack of a direct condemnation from the West of married priests at the time of the Great Schism, the idea of complete celibacy was already being pushed on the one side. Potentially, these religious disputes could have been peacefully resolved if more effort had been made. But there were also political disagreements as well. Maybe most notably, the decision of whether the Pope should be of higher authority than any patriarch or other leader or not. The East naturally strongly disapproved of this statement, and tensions begin to rise between the Pope and Patriarch of Constantinople. Though the East and West as a whole were responsible for the strain, the immediate events of the schism in 1054 might be soundly pinned on the contemporary Patriarch of Constantinople, Michael Cerularius. Determined to maintain the Eastern Church's independence from being overrun by the West, Cerularius seemed almost intent on creating a schism. Initially, when the Byzantine Emperor Constantine IX Monomachus wished to align with the Pope and the Roman Empire against the threat of the Normans, Cerularius refused to cooperate whatsoever. In 1052, the Patriarch went as far as to demand that all Latin churches within his diocese use the Greek language and practices. 2 years later, Pope Leo IX, utterly resolute on negotiating an alliance with the Byzantines, sent 3 legates to Constantinople. Unwavered from his obstinance, Cerularius flat-out refused to meet with the legates. As the situation continued to drag on with no clear end, the Pope died back in Rome and left one of his legates, Cardinal Humbert of Silva Candida, with a new idea. Saturday, July 16, 1054, Cardinal Humbert marched into the Hagia Sophia Cathedral during Divine Liturgy and placed a charter of excommunication right on the main altar, officially excommunicating Patriarch Michael Cerularius and his church. In retaliation, Cerularius excommunicated the papal legates, and, according to some historians, the Western Church along with them. Although this mutual excommunication was not the sole source of the Great Schism of 1054, it stands as the final straw for both sides, and the marker of division of Christianity into today's Catholic and Orthodox denominations. Multiple attempts have been made to heal the schism, but the East particularly has remained set in their autonomy. The relationship between the denominations has seen some improvement and better civility since the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, and the establishment of the Joint International Commission for Theological Dialogue between the Catholic Church and Orthodox Church in 1979, but the East and West churches still prevail as individual and autonomous branches of Christianity.